What is up, everybody? My name is BobaTalks. Welcome to a brand new Flash Season 4 video, and this video is about the different ways, or how do I think that Clifford DeVoe, aka the Thinker, could be introduced in Season 4. So guys, as you probably may know now, it is looking more and more likely that the Thinker, aka Clifford DeVoe, could well possibly be the next season's main villain. Now this isn't to say that he won't be accompanied by other villains throughout the season, such as the Rogues, but I'll get to that a little bit further into this video. This video is talking a bit about DeVoe himself and how he could actually be implemented into Season 4 of The Flash, and the potential different ways that this could actually happen. But if you have actually no idea of what or who I'm talking about, then you can check out my other video that I made immediately after the Thinker's name was first name dropped in the show, which shortly after made many fans think that it was foreshadowing next season's villain. But I will actually explain how this thinking, no pun intended, came to be. So in The Flash Season 3 Episode 18, Abracadabra mentioned the words DeVoe in a conversation to Barry, among Barry's other villains such as Thorn, Zoom, Savitar, and he also mentioned the Thinker by his last name, DeVoe. And then in The Flash Season 3, the next mention of DeVoe was from Savitar himself, so when pretending that he was potentially coming over to the light side in the finale in Star Labs, when he was talking to Barry Allen, Savitar mentioned the Thinker by referencing that the fact that the room they were in is where Team Flash constructed a cerebral inhibitor in an effort to stop DeVoe. So yet again, another major clue that possibly hints that the Thinker is next season's villain. Also at the same time of this, when Barry was like, what? Savitar also mentioned, oh, you haven't gotten there yet. So that basically informs both Barry and the fans that there is more bad to come, which certainly, in my opinion, foreshadows Clifford DeVoe, aka the Thinker, to be next season's villain. Now, at the time of making this video, the Thinker, or Clifford DeVoe, whatever you want to call him, is not yet confirmed as Season 4's villain, but I am very confident that he will be. It's just a matter of time of when, they normally announce stuff at Comic-Con and just show what's in store for next season, that they will reveal Clifford DeVoe and possibly some other villains as well to be Season 4's main lineup of big bad, because I don't think it will just be the Thinker. Also, just going by the fact of the announcement that we know that Season 4's villain will not be a speedster. I repeat, not be a speedster. Some of you may know this already, but I still am getting questions about speedsters being the main villain next season. But anyway, and as well the foreshadowing that the show has already done during Season 3 by throwing DeVoe's name with other major players Barry has faced, such as Zoom, Thorn, and Savitar. It seems very likely that he will be the one Team Flash will be facing, as it is depicted in the show that he will be one of the main guys that Barry has to face at some point in his career, and each person who's mentioned it to him, whether that's Abracadabra or Savitar, they kind of assume that he's already faced DeVoe, so it must be coming up very, very soon. But yet, how could the Thinker actually be introduced into Season 4? So as I said earlier, if you want to know the origins and a bit more about the Thinker specifically, be sure to check out my first video on DeVoe or the Thinker, as I don't want to talk too in depth about that here. But essentially, the long story short, the traditional backstory of DeVoe's Thinker is that he was a failed lawyer. He realized that many of the criminals he had encountered had the skills but not the brains to rule. So he started a new career as the brain behind small-time villains, and he was always one for seeking new scientific devices to use, and the most important one to note was his thinking cap, which had the ability to project mental force, and this device in particular is one he would use over the many years he was the villain, the Thinker. Now, I always say this, but these origins will not be directly translated over to the show. Otherwise, it would be copy and pasted, and there wouldn't really be any fun at guessing what they could do with his character. So they may choose to implement certain things from the Thinker's various history to keep it fresh and entertaining, but what we do know for sure is that his name is DeVoe, so it probably won't be the other identities like Cliff Carmichael, who is, basically another Thinker, but that's another story for another time. However, I could see the CW somehow trying in a story like, what they did with Julian Albert's name. Really, Alchemy's name in the comics was Albert Desmond. So they could do something like that with Cliff Carmichael and Clifford DeVoe. perhaps to confuse viewers who may know quite a bit about his origin, but who knows? This season they really might take deception completely out of it and have Clifford DeVoe truly as Clifford DeVoe. So guys, we've got to this part of the video now. Usually the finales or whatever happens at the end of the finales has something to do with the next season, or at least springboards the show's narrative to starting the next season's story. Now, with what happened at the end of Season 3 with the Speedforce Lightning Storm, this could actually be one possible way that the Thinker, or the alias of the Thinker, is born. Now, before anyone says Godspeed, I know. Like, trust me, I know. This Lightning Storm was a clear Easter egg and reference to the Rebirth storyline. Some of you may be familiar with this, some of you may not. There are plenty of explainer YouTube videos on this whole Godspeed thing. But however, I'm pretty confident that the Speedforce Storm will not create any speedster villains for next season's Flash. However, I'm not ruling that out at all, and I'm not ruling out that the Storm could cause something that may subsequently birth the new villain that will come in Season 4, amongst many other villains. But they've already said that a speedster will not be Season 4's main villain. That doesn't mean we're not going to get, I don't know, cameo speedsters such as Thorn, because we normally see Thorn in every single season one way or another. But the reason why I don't necessarily think Godspeed will be a part of Season 4 is because he's very new in the comics. Secondly, if they did want to do someone as main and cool as him, he couldn't just be somebody below the, below the Thinker, since Season 4's villain is not a speedster. He's going to be the main dude. Why would they introduce somebody as cool and potentially as dangerous as Godspeed if he's just going to be barely in it, So they could save someone like that for another season. We could get new speedsters born from the Speedforce Lightning Storm. However, they would have to, like, sort of, I don't know, be in the background for the next season at least. And if anything, I think they would want to do Cobalt Blue before Godspeed or anything like that. But anyway, now moving past the Speedforce Lightning Storm, I'm thinking of a couple of things when it comes to the finale Speedforce Lightning Storm in general. So number one is, instead of creating speedsters like the comic, the Speedforce Lightning Storm activates some of the metagenes in even more people. So if they were hit with the lightning, that would be the way it would be done. But at the same time, I do find this unlikely though, since the particle accelerator gave the show enough momentum with metas to create problems. So to make another event that created even more is just kind of strange and takes away from the particle accelerator explosion. But yet again, going on the other side, I believe it was said that in the show everyone now has this kind of meta gene in sort of Central City, but it didn't necessarily activate in everyone, and it could activate at any time. So maybe, just maybe, this Speedforce Lightning Storm really did activate quite a few other villains. So this is probably got something to do with it. Maybe it does activate, the metahuman gene in quite a few people. But going on to my second option is that the Lightning Storm may have injured or perhaps killed people. And to be honest, not may or perhaps, it probably definitely did somewhere. What we have to remember is that this was quite a violent storm, and we were made fully aware that if Barry didn't go inside the Speedforce, then it could have destroyed the whole planet. We saw that buildings were crumbling in Star Labs, and there were essentially earthquakes as a result of this, which were very high up on the scale. So this surely means that someone somewhere out there was injured or perhaps killed, as it would be a miracle if that didn't happen. So perhaps one of these people who could have been a fatality of the Speedforce Storm was a loved one of Clifford DeVoe. Maybe this is what births his motive for wanting to destroy the Flash, in addition to, or a slight altered version of his traditional origin. For example, he could still be in law, thinking that the criminals he comes across have all the skill but no real brains to execute the plan, and as a result of losing someone due to the Speedforce Lightning Storm, it could drive him over the edge, and he could perhaps get a band of villains or rogues together, referencing what I said at the beginning of this video. Now remember though, this is just all a roughly piled together theory with the current run of the CW's Flash with his original backstory in mind, but I think it is quite doable. He could, have a law/DA background to him, just like from the comics, a person who has been trying to help out in law enforcement just like Barry, only to have all of his good values taken away by a hero indirectly from the Flash. And as for all great villains, sometimes it is just something as simple that makes them snap. Maybe they've been a good person mostly on the outside, but it's just one little change that can alter their perception and reality as a whole. And perhaps losing someone because of the Speedforce Lightning Storm could do that to Clifford DeVoe, and who knows, it could actually activate his metahuman gene. Now, what immediately screams out to me, as I mentioned at the very beginning of this video, is that he has been known to be the brains behind villains. So we could see him do the very same on the Flash. Now, what villains would be perfect for this? Well, the Rogues, of course. Now, I doubt Captain Cold or Heatwave would be involved in this because, you know, the whole Legends related story and what's happened with, you know, certain characters on that. For example, Leonard Snart, but I'm not going to say any more. But there are still a few possible people he could still get to jump on board. But the question that lingers in my mind, even after all this speculation anyway, is that in Season 4, will DeVoe be a metahuman, empowered even further by technology such as his thinking cap on top of his genius intellect? Or is he just a genius, either fueled by his rage for the Flash after the events of the Speedforce Storm, or just a normal guy who's had one bad day that ended up changing everything, just like somebody else we know in DC? So one way I could actually see this unfolding, with what I've already said in mind, is that in the first 10 episodes we could see the first half of the season that there are reports of mysterious groups of thugs or villains that are robbing certain tech industries, who are a lot more organized than your average thieves, but really this is Clifford DeVoe causing the trouble or committing the robberies by these small bands of villains. Only after ironically serving the city in law previously, and he's actually using the pieces of technology that he has acquired from, I don't know, even places like Palmer Tech and other companies, which results in them actually combining them together to eventually create the infamous thinking cap. Then we could actually even see him step up and causing even more trouble with his thinking cap, instead of initially hiding behind the small groups of thugs that he sends out with these immaculate plans and, you know, that inevitably run into the Flash, and then the story, you know, continues from there. But another interesting thing to note about just the Thinker and Clifford DeVoe in general is that I've heard from friends or just other fans that they kind of don't want the Thinker to be next season's villain. And the answer why is just usually due to that they don't really know enough about him, or they don't think that he could carry a whole season, or just mainly that he isn't as well known as the speedster villains that we've had before, and that it's worrying having a villain that isn't massively popular take the whole of a season to fight. Now, I do understand where, you know, these people are coming from. The Flash has been a very good TV show thus far. Season 1's origins of Barry and Eobard Thawne was brilliant. Season 2's with Zoom was great and refreshed us with another cool speedster villain. And Season 3 was great too, despite some of the hiccups that many people may mention, which I will not get into now. We kind of have exhausted the speedster option as the main antagonist for a whole season long. For at least most people anyway. Yeah, I do think, even though people are kind of tired of the speedster cowl reveals, it's also a bit hard for them to imagine the show being successful without a cool, threatening speedster villain. So when someone like the Thinker is brought to mind, and especially, you know, him not being a speedster as Season 4's main villain, people, you know, don't have that much faith. However, despite if you who are watching this video right now are among those who are worried about the Thinker being an interesting enough villain for a season-long battle, I'm here to say that I am not. Just because you may have not heard of him before doesn't mean that he won't be interesting. And most of the fanbase anyway probably didn't know too much, if anything at all, about Zoom, or let alone Savitar. So now what is just left is that he isn't a speedster. And what I have to say to that is, so? We've had our fill of speedsters, and now it's time for the Thinker's many powers, such as, you know, we've got telekinesis guys and mind control, which could be very threatening to Team Flash. Don't forget that the CW has a whole budget of making, you know, this guy look cool in Season 4, and potentially, you know, with the Rogues, make them look very threatening, and actually cause a very, very big problem for Team Flash. So trust me, if DeVoe, aka the Thinker, is Season 4's main villain, they will make him look like the badass he deserves to be. But anyway, guys, that is all from this video. If you did enjoy it, please leave a like, as it really does show your support for the channel, and it just really helps me out when I put quite a bit of effort into making videos just like this one. But what I would love to hear from you guys in the comment section is, what ways do you think Clifford DeVoe could be introduced into Season 4? And do you even think that Clifford DeVoe, aka the Thinker, is going to be Season 4's villain? So go ahead and leave a comment, as I do read practically every single comment that is left on this channel. So go ahead and do that, guys, and I'll be sure to read them, and I might even respond to a few if you think of an awesome way about how Clifford DeVoe could be introduced into Season 4. So my next video is going to be a Gotham video about, you know, the trailer for the finale. It looks insane. Be sure to follow me on my social medias, which is just @/BobaTalks on Twitter and Facebook. The links are right in the description below. All you have to do is click on them and click follow to stay a little bit more up to date with me personally. But that is all from me in today's video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it. I've said that probably 2 or 3 times by now. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.